This is the Downtown Series podcast, the podcast for everything Chicago real estate and beyond. Each episode, you will hear from some of Chicago's leading experts straight from our beautiful office here at Downtown Apartment Company. I'm Ben Creamer. Join us as we dive deep into Chicago real estate landscape, discuss upcoming developments, and provide you with the knowledge beyond pulse of the market. As always, choose wisely, live stylishly.
Here with us is Erica Rios, co-founder and principal of Downtown Apartment Company, and our guest, Aysha Hackert, and team leader. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Cool.
Good.
So we are just going to start things off here, and Aysha is going to give us a little bit of background about herself. I think you've been here, was it 5 years? 5 years. Cool. So I guess give us a little background and tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I've been in Chicago 5 years. Before then, I was born and raised small town Iowa girl. I started off working when I was 16 at a winery, basically working full time as I was going to high school. My first time coming to Chicago was my senior year of high school. We came for like a senior visit. We saw Wicked, went to the art museum, and that was the first time I fell in love with Chicago. It was being from a town that's 3,000 people. It was completely different than anything I'd ever seen. So that's kind of where like the dream of moving to Chicago started. And then when I was 24, I would say, I was just looking for a change, needed something different. There's only so much that you can do in Iowa. Wanted something that just didn't have a ceiling to it, that sky's the limit. So decided to just spontaneously move to Chicago. Came here on Friday, interviewed on Saturday, was offered the job on Sunday. On Monday, I went back to Iowa, put my 2 weeks in, and then I moved here a week and a half later. So it was all very quick, but been here 5 years, and this is the only job I've had since I've been here, and I love it. It's definitely something that's good if you're a hard worker and you just don't want any cap to what you're able to do.
Yeah, for sure. That's that's a pretty quick transition for sure.
Yeah.
Were you pretty nervous when you decided to pull the trigger? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had roommates in Iowa. I lived with my parents right before I moved. I had never really done anything on my own before. And it's just coming to a job where you're not guaranteed a paycheck either was also very scary. But
sure,
there was just nothing that I couldn't do. I had to come here and just kind of run with it. And I'm glad I did, because it's led to so many other opportunities.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think that one thing that keeps people out of this industry is a lot of people think you kind of need to be from Chicago. You need to be in the city that you're doing it from. And don't get me wrong, it helps like having that network, having all those people there. Since it is very much a network business,
sure.
But you can do it if you just, you decide one day you want to do it and you put your mind to it. And, you can be 24, come to the city, 5 years later, bam, you're doing just as much volume, if not more volume than, anyone else leasing apartments in downtown Chicago. So hats off to you there.
Thank you.
And so a little bit, part of the reason why we want to have Aysha on here is because we are obviously in the middle of a pandemic. And so things are starting to kind of get back to normal. You're wearing masks, but more buildings are opening up. You're having showings. The rental buildings, for the most part, I would say generally are doing showings, whether they're self-guided or, just limiting the amount of people. Some condo buildings, not so much, right? Mm-hmm. So it totally depends. But during all of this, Aysha actually she set a company record, which was, I think, like you did 24 rentals in June. Mm-hmm. And so that is something that, for someone, and you don't do a lot of listings. So like, it's not like you have a bunch of listings and you have people coming to you and agents like trying to rent your places. Like these are all 100% like tenant reps. So like, she's basically got 24 accounts. She's putting them in places. And, and for me, I think I did, 19 or 21 years. And I was like gassed, like almost wanted to throw in the towel and take off the next month. Mm-hmm. But tell us a little bit what that was like, how you were able to do that. Do you think you could have done that if it weren't for like a pandemic?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. And it's something that I thought about before, because previous record definitely wasn't my previous best month definitely wasn't as high as that. So I definitely think the pandemic helped. So thankfully, I was in a position where it helped me. It's just easier to be able to send out, 6 virtual tour requests versus touring someone for 6 buildings for 6 hours. So, and, for me, I usually stack clients too. So there's days where, I'm touring 4, 5, 6 clients, whether it's going to 6 buildings with one and 2 with another and 1 with another. But, it was just Groundhog Day of opening my laptop and sending out virtual tour emails. And I really think that did help. Another thing that really helped was just the knowledge of the market too, and not just of the market, but the specific buildings themselves. I had a lot of clients that relied on my knowledge of, what way does an O2 at this building face? Okay, if you're above the 13th floor, you're definitely going to have a great view when you necessarily couldn't get into the building to see it for yourself. So that's definitely something that helped. I think just being laser focused and not having anything else to do. Like I wasn't going to sit at home and watch, TV all day.
And you weren't even in the state.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I was
you
in
did
Georgia
this
for 2
all
months.
from a different state, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. Obviously you need to have that market knowledge, like you having your knowledge and just knowing the buildings the way you do absolutely would help you. But also another thing I think that you bring up, which is interesting, is that like not having to tour people like frees up your time.
Yeah.
So then you can basically put more time into correspondence with your clients, into marketing, into advertising, into whatever you need to do in order to adjust and sort of realign yourself in what the norm is to the market. And I personally, I had okay months, but it was nothing compared to you. And part of the reason is you just were able to adjust quicker than anybody at this company, and probably anyone I would say like downtown. Like I really don't think there's that many agents who lease anywhere close to 30 units in a pandemic. And so just to give people a background, that's sort of how it happened. But you intuitively you're like, well, how do you lease more units in a pandemic, right? Like, and that's kind of how is you just figured it out quicker than most other people would, know?
Yeah. And also, Aysha, so give us an idea, just an overview of how you were able to rent apartments during this pandemic, like details.
Yeah. So really it was a lot of marketing on my end. So again, I've been doing this for 5 years. The first 2 years probably was, I relied heavily on marketing and trying to generate my own leads. And then, year 3 and 4 was a lot of repeat clients and referrals and more of my sphere of influence. And then just this past year, specifically with the pandemic, all that kind of dried up. So it was really just generating my own leads through advertising. And you just have to really be able and have to have the mindset and the mental health, not the mental health, but the mental strength to be able to sit on your laptop from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed and just really be persistent with people. So for me, I was constantly following up. It's different doing it virtually because you are just basically another email in that person's inbox. So you have to really try to make yourself personable, make them realize that you are a person and not just another person trying to get them into any old apartment. So really it was a lot of just, like I said, opening my laptop, working constantly, staying on top of people, trying to find what the best deal was, consistently researching buildings and specials, and always marketing that too, because it's not always necessarily the best price that gets the best clients through advertising. It's usually the best deal. So, and I think in the uncertainty of early days of COVID, no one knew what was going to happen with the economy or how long this shelter in place was going to last. So a lot of people, would have a $2,500 budget for a 1-bedroom, and then all of a sudden they're going down to a $1,800 budget for a 1-bedroom with all the same specifications because they didn't know if they were going to be furloughed or let off or even going to have a job in a few months. So just really adjusting with the market and having a pulse on not just the Chicago market, but the building market as well, if that makes sense.
Right.
And speaking about adjusting, I feel like we also, prior to COVID, I feel like we were pretty equipped to do like sight unseen virtual tours, just due to the fact we get a lot of international students or people moving from out of state. So I feel like for us in the company overall, it was not that big of an adjustment. It was just adjusting about being able to work with more clients, actually more volume, but not to spend an hour a day.
Yeah. Well, we have the infrastructure too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like we're a different company where I think like, yes, you have different teams here and there and different agents all doing their own thing, but we still have like this infrastructure and this CRM and this hub that really ties everything together. And like, we have the tools necessary to be able to navigate this. Whereas like, if you don't have that, it's not going to be as easy, and that's something like that you guys have just done from stage one. And so like, I think that just really helped a lot, whether it's, pictures, videos, virtual tours of everything, like we just have that stuff. And so it was really helpful.
Yeah. And being able to, like you mentioned, relate to the client. Hey, like, can you talk to me about the view? Do I get a lot of natural light? Will my cat be able to see birds, or will my dog be able to, hang out in balcony? Let's talk about trends. What trends have you seen?
So as far as like the units themselves, definitely balcony, more space, something with a den. A lot of my clients that are 2 people living in a unit, they're like, we're both working from home. The 600 square foot one bedroom that you put us in last year was great. We loved it. But had we known in February when you moved us in here that in 2 months' time we'd be both working from home. So a lot of clients are upping their budgets to get more space where, they can both work from home. They have that outdoor space. A lot of clients are looking for better views as well. Where some of my clients before, they're like, I don't care. I want the best price with a brick wall for a view because I work, I'm going to be at work 18 hours a day. Yeah. Now it's kind of backtracking to where I need more space. I need a good view because I am going to be working from home and I need that natural light. So definitely trends for units is that kind of stuff. And then as far as pricing, I think in the beginning, a lot of people were coming to us saying, well, what's pricing doing? Because, of COVID and the pandemic and everything. And really in the beginning, it held strong. The market held strong. Yes. There wasn't anything. And I really just feel like within the past 30 days, we've seen a drastic decrease in pricing and increase in concessions. So I think the Chicago rental market is finally starting to feel the effects of the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like just to kind of set things up in a timeline would be helpful. So let's see, was it March like 17th? Was it like literally
13th.
St. Patrick? It was the 13th is when the stay-at-home came into effect. Okay,
yeah.
Right. And so if you were in the market, you were seeing this stuff before that. I remember that the week before the order came in, I had a bunch of people flying in town. We were in spring, right? It was spring market. It was busier than ever.
Yeah.
There was maybe a slight pullback, but nothing crazy. And then, the week before it, kind of got into the media and it just was what was on everyone's pulse of mind. And I had 2 clients cancel right away. One was no longer going to buy downtown. The other one was like, hey, we got to figure out a way to do this virtually. I can't fly there. And at that point, it was really bad because you just didn't know what people were going to do. You didn't know if you flew in, if you couldn't fly out like all this stuff. And so I think so that happened. And then it was a month, I would say, for me, it was like no one was making any decisions. Like it was totally slow. But then once you kind of got a firm idea of, all right, this is what the stay-at-home order is going to look like. We know they're definitely not going to do this. They'll do, and so you get a more clear picture, and people kind of were just like, all right, it is what it is. Like we'll figure it out.
Right.
So like, were you seeing a lot of your tenants like really be comfortable renting sight unseen right away? How was that like? Did you have to really kind of twist their arm to do it, or were they just like, all right, it is what it is. We can't see it, so we got to rent it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it was a little bit of both. It definitely was an adjustment getting clients to feel comfortable renting something sight unseen because like Erica said, it's nothing new to us. We have international clients. We have clients coming in from out of state and we do our best to show them and showcase the unit as much as we can. But people that are wanting to move to a unit that's 3 blocks down the road, like it's just hard for them to wrap their mind around the fact that they won't be able to go in and see it. So it was a little bit of both. I think the biggest thing in the beginning was, again, just the uncertainty. And a lot of my clients right in the beginning in that March timeframe, they were like, okay, well, maybe I'll just extend my lease for 2 or 3 months and see what's going to happen and go from there.
Right.
So there was a lot of that. There was a lot of people just being like, hey, I'm going to just move home. Instead, I'm going to save money. I'm going to go live with my parents in their basement for a little bit and just kind of ride this out, see what happens. So the beginning, it was a little bit tough. There were a lot of people that were like, hey, let's, maybe touch back in a couple weeks and see what's going to happen. So once we kind of got I would say 45 days in, or not 30 days in, that's when a lot of people were like, okay, we kind of just have to deal with this. Let's see what we can do. So, and the buildings did a really great job too. I think the Zoom tours and the FaceTime tours were really key to making people feel comfortable with renting sight unseen, because it's one thing to have a video, but it's another thing to have someone physically in a unit or a comparable unit and say, hey, can you actually go back into the bathroom and run the water for me so I can see what the water pressure is like.
Right.
So yeah,
it's tough for sure.
I do also believe that people looking at your reviews on Google Plus and Yelp gave them a sense of like comfort and trust. Because I get that a lot. Like, especially during this difficult time, clients were relying on your expertise, knowledge, trust, and also seeing the relationship between your relationship with the building and the client. It's just amazing.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
from all my sight unseens over the past however many years, I mean, I have a huge influx of, or a huge pile of videos and pictures of just random units at buildings. So there's a couple times I got lucky and I was like, oh, I actually have pictures of that exact unit with that exact view. So here you go. So that was also able to help with a few things as well.
Yeah. I remember. Go ahead, Erica.
Sorry. And also being able to tell the client, hey, you're like 30-second walk or 2-minute walk from the grocery store. Yeah. Here's like the vet, about 5-minute walk in the West Loop. Right now, I noticed one of the trends too was people just want to be within walking distance now to work. I want to be within walking distance to like a grocery store, my vet, lifestyle overall. So it's just having to be able to be like, hey, let me just go and take a quick video and show you how walking distance to everything is like FaceTiming them. Hey, here's the building, we're across the street, literally here's Julasco. So it really did help a lot. But definitely. For us, that was nothing really new. So
I mean, I've done that for clients. I've literally FaceTime clients walking down the street, or even one time, there's a time where the client was like, well, I kind of want to know what the train ride's going to be like. And I'm like, well, all right. So I took an Uber down to like whatever the red line station was and got on FaceTime, like, okay, here we go. Here's 3 stops. Okay, we're going to get off here, walk up here, and there's your office.
Yeah, and that's why she's renting 25 apartments a month.
And her referrals and her reviews. I mean, absolutely.
Sometimes you just got to do, and it can be a very stressful and scary process to rent an apartment sight unseen too. So you just have to do whatever you can to make your client feel comfortable. And I think that comes back to just showing them that you're also a human too. And for me, I would hate to think I found my dream apartment and then move in and be like, oh my gosh, I hate this. So really just getting on their level and being like, whatever I can do to make you feel comfortable, you just tell me, I'm here to help you.
Sure. Definitely. Yeah. And it almost was like for a period, well, I think this probably was the case, but I know from a company standpoint, we had also, record months in June, July, August. But like web traffic also seemed like it was up, right? Like to me, at least, it seemed like web traffic was up. And I've kind of looked into some of the numbers from a company standpoint, and it did okay.
Record breaking June and July.
Right. And then August. So we're not there yet for August, but we're on track to maybe. And this is
more weeks.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, which, good for us, I guess. But it almost was like, you had more people reaching out to experts because it was made it so much harder having that barrier, not being able to see this stuff.
Yeah.
And like, there's an additional outsourcing involved in using an agent or broker because we just know more and we have more access to stuff. So that was, it actually, like, if you played it right, I know some people got burned during COVID and, and some people didn't do too well, but like, if you played it right, there was a ton of business out there for you. And there still is. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, to be honest, right now is the time to be able to close like her many deals, because you're not spending, like Aysha said, an hour per building with client. You can have about 5 to 10 clients, and you can have like send an email out and connect them with the building introduction. However, for you to be able to have that and be able to do that, you have to have the market knowledge. You have to know your buildings inside out. You have to know your floor plans. You have to know your concessions, and not only concession from a 12-month lease for like a 15-month lease. And, that comes up with knowledge, and, you work every day and you work hard.
No days off. I think a lot of it is also, you have to have confidence in yourself too. If I think a big pain point for a lot of agents or some agents was just the overlap of, this person's working with this broker and also this broker. At the end of the day, like the client doesn't know the difference between whatever, like working with this person and this person. So there was a lot of that. And I think if you let that get to you, then it definitely did hinder your opportunity to do well during this time. So for me, it was just like, okay, you're working with this person already. No problem at all. I wish you best of luck. Now it's on to generating more leads. So I always say, and my team hates me for this, but it's always on to the next. Like
for sure,
you can't do anything if, someone else closed somewhere without you. At the end of the day, if you want to be mad about it for 2 seconds, but you can't let that affect the rest of your clients and the rest of your outlook, especially like for the rest of the day. I have, talked to people and they're like, I just really had a couple bad clients. I just kind of took a week off. Well, you know what? Guess what? All those clients then came
those
to
are
me.
your clients now.
So thank you for taking the week off. But I mean, you just have to be able to push through it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's a funnel, right? You got to keep your funnel as big as possible. And that's not to say you don't make meaningful relationships, connections with your clients. Like you do, you get tons of reviews. Like you're friends with a lot of your clients. Like you do, but at the same time, it is business. You got to keep that funnel open. And if you let stuff like that drag you down, you're setting yourself up for failure at the, at the start, because it's gonna happen and it sucks. And the more times you get punched in the face, the less it hurts, pretty much. So
100%. Like that's why I tell my team too. Like, because there's times where a big deal has fallen through or something, and I'm just kind of like, well, okay. And they're like, "What? How are you doing this?" I'm like, "Well, I've been burned a lot. That's just part of this job. If you want to be, if you want to have a job that you're not going to deal with these ups and downs of the roller coaster, then you shouldn't be in real estate. Like it's just how it is." So just really having that mindset to just push through it and be like, okay, well, nothing I can do, so let's go on and help another person.
Right.
And always, always, always ask for referrals too, because I can't tell you the amount of referrals I've gotten from someone that I tried my hardest to help, and maybe their cousin's sister's husband had a sublet that was just the perfect unit. Okay, well, I'm glad that it worked out for them. Like truly, I want people to go with what works best for them. But then guess what? That person just referred me 5 people because I did work so hard to try to help them. So you just can't count things out.
Right.
To be honest, for me, from my experience doing this 11 years, I learned from getting burned. I learned from my failures. And that is such a tough lesson for me to learn. And did I like it? No. Did I learn from it? Yes. Would it happen to me? I know. And I tried my best, to learn from my mistakes and be able to teach that.
And people feed off it too. Your clients will feed off it.
Yes.
If I remember a time I had 2 clients in a day, or however many clients, and my first client, something happened. I can't exactly remember. Maybe she told me she was going to look at stuff without me or something, and it just kind of bummed me out. But I'm like, you know what? I cannot let this affect the next client that I have, because they're going to know that I'm bummed or I'm upset, and that's just not good customer service. So you just have to kind of brush it off and move on to the next person.
Right. So. Yeah, that's the most important thing I would say is, like, you look back at anything that's fallen apart. You might at one point, you haven't done enough times. Like you might be 100% sure you got burned and it was out of your control. There's nothing you can do. But let me tell you, that's a really bad way of looking at things, because you could analyze and dissect every deal, every situation, every interaction. And like, even though maybe you think you got the unfair end of the stick, there's something you could have done better that maybe would have prevented that situation from happening. So anytime you think you're just some victim of getting like getting burned on a deal, like you got to check yourself, because there's always something you're constantly doing. And sometimes things out of your control. It sucks. It's painful. Someone loses a job. You can't, but you can't control that at the end of the day. So mindset. It's your mindset. You can't control your mindset.
You react to it. So.
Exactly. And that's one of the most important things for people to understand about this industry.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's about honestly being able to teach your failures and be able to be like how I was able to overcome that.
Right.
Being a top agent, can you talk a little bit about how was like training like new agents at DAC, or like any feedback?
So I did virtually train, I think it was 3 people, if I remember correctly, 2 or 3 people through the pandemic. And it wasn't too difficult. The biggest thing that I missed was just the face-to-face interaction, and having them just kind of shadow me. And like I always say, today we're going to do a day in the life. So that way they can see from the minute I get to the office to the minute I get home, kind of what a day in the life of Aysha is like. So I did miss that, because I feel like they do get a lot of value from that. But it was still easy. We were able to, go through Zoom. I was able to share my screen. we were able to talk through buildings. So it wasn't difficult. And the agents that I did train virtually, once things were able to open back up, I just took, a day or so to kind of regroup and say, okay, are there any questions you have? Was there anything that you wish that we would have gone over more? And the nice thing too is a lot of the buildings are doing new agent tours again. So they are able to go through and do that product knowledge. I think that was the biggest pain point was just not being able to get them the product knowledge they needed to know the market, to be able to close quicker, close more. But I mean, all my agents, they did an amazing job. They are doing an amazing job. So it wasn't.
Let's just say one of your agents started 90 days ago and also hit 21 deals.
Oh yeah. I mean,
that was crazy. I've never seen anything like that.
Let's just say she has never been in real estate either.
Yeah.
Like
she did
never
amazing.
done real estate. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even want to take a lot of credit for that either, because she's
like a freak. I mean, a lot of it's her being like a freak. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, she actually reminds me a lot of me when I first started. Just kind of, I don't want to obviously give too much information away, but she reminds me a lot of me when I first started, where she's like, I'm hungry. I'm taking care of myself. I have no one else to take care of me. So I'm just going to do whatever I can to be successful in this. And so she basically took every tip, every trick that I gave her, and she ran with it, and she is doing an amazing job. I mean, she was able to, 90 days? She started right before the shelter in place, and she was able to just take 2 weeks off to go visit her mom. So I don't want to take all the credit for that. She is doing an amazing job, but it does just show you that this job is sky is the limit. Like if you put effort into it, you are going to see the fruits of your labor, as you like to say.
Absolutely.
So I think the biggest things that she took into account was like that I tell her, and I tell this to everybody, is sense of urgency. Like if you are not fast and if you don't have that sense of urgency, then you can basically just kiss that client goodbye. So she was the type of person that she's like, I wake up at 7 a.m. and I don't go to bed until 2 a.m. and I'm constantly on my laptop. So yeah, she's doing amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
And that's what was like really, I mean,
it's a little mini me.
Cool about, not cool necessarily, it's probably not the right word to describe a pandemic, but what was an interesting sort of like feature of the pandemic is that it sort of did create a level playing field in a lot of ways, because I was adjusting, and I've been in the industry for 5 years. I'm someone, I primarily rely on referrals, a lot of leads that come into our office, and my listings, right? And so the more people I have, going to my listings, the more leads I'm going to get. And so I didn't have any of that. And so I wasn't going back into the marketing the way you guys do it. And I should have. But it created that even playing field where if you're coming in, you're all kind of, at that same starting line again. And she was able to do 21, which is crazy. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people who are doing this for, as long as we do, don't hit 21 in a month. So that was a pretty amazing thing to see. I remember when we were doing, our closing calls, I was like, is this real right now? Like,
this
what?
one and this one and this one.
I was like, when's she going to stop?
Yeah. I know. She's awesome.
Let's be clear, it's 21 ASAP for June. That's not including her July or August or...
These are people who move in during June. That month, not how many you actually leases you sign basically.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
which is incredible.
Yeah. And she's probably going to do better than me this month because I took all of July off. So, I mean, that's a whole, it's 30 days of not working. There's a lot of potential there. But at the same time, I took 0 time off from January 1st to July 1st. So I needed it.
Yeah.
You work hard. 24 in 1 month, ASAP, move-ins, ASAP move-in, not including your July, August, or September. It's incredible.
Thank you.
You should be very proud.
I am.
I'm
also tired. It was tiring, but it was good. I mean,
would you say it was actually more or less tiring than, say like last year when you're on your feet all the time and you're not doing as much, you're doing 15 to 20, but what was that kind of like?
That's an interesting question. I was actually kind of talking about that with a friend before. It was more mentally exhausting, but not physically exhausting. I have noticed that my stamina is basically gone. Like there were days where like I remember last year in June, I had 33 tours in 3 days, but that's also, those are also with private condo tours that can be, 15 minutes long or whatever. But, and that was fine. I was fine. I'm like, all right, let's do another day of tours. But I had a day a couple days ago or a couple weeks ago where I had like maybe 5 tours in a day. And I got home, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so exhausted. So yeah, it's definitely more mentally exhausting because I'm also, I think another reason that makes me so good at this job is that I'm also a control freak, and I like to know 100% what information my client is getting, what they're seeing, everything. So when I send out 6 virtual tour emails, and then I just kind of have to sit there and be like, okay, well now what? Like, I don't know what they think. Are they looking at it now?
Yeah.
So definitely more mentally exhausting, not as physically exhausting.
Sure. I think that makes sense too, especially too, like with just, I mean, there's still a pandemic going on and stuff. So like that puts a mental strain on you.
Well, emotionally too, because then you have people that are like, well, hey, I'm really sorry, but I have to, pull out my application because I just got fired. Like, obviously that sucks for us, but just knowing what that person is going through as well, like it was very emotionally exhausting. Right.
Yeah. So one thing you did, we didn't touch on this too thoroughly, but you mentioned that, pricing. And so when we talk about pricing, we're just talking about the rental market. We're not doing sales right now. It's just a totally different subject. But with rentals, you did mention that prices held up pretty well. Pretty much across, I'd say, most asset classes in downtown Chicago and just, the surrounding neighborhoods. And that lasted probably 45 to 60 days. Yeah. Right. And so now, we're seeing concessions. We're seeing more concessions than I've ever seen on the market.
More concessions that I've ever seen. And I've been doing this for 11 years.
Especially for this time of year, too.
Yeah.
I mean,
and this is what I remember I was saying this back in, like I did a video back in like early, it was right when the thing hit. And I was like, you're going to see 3 months. You could even be seeing up to 4 months on the like 24-month leases. And you're seeing that. I mean, you're seeing 4 months free at certain buildings. You're seeing... I mean, if you're not getting 2 months free, like you almost have to be offering that. Right. Like it's just at this point, it's like expected from anyone like looking to rent. Like it's pretty wild. So I guess tell me, why do you think there was maybe, that lag? Why do you think the market's figuring this out now? What do you think is going on there?
I think a major part of that is in the beginning, there were people still moving to Chicago because there was a lot of people that didn't know if they'd be working from home or if they'd be, moving here for a job. So in the beginning, I think it held strong because people were still moving. People had plans of moving to Chicago for jobs. And the buildings just, not even buildings, but like the whole city didn't know what was going to happen or how long it would last for. So, I remember when I went to Georgia at the beginning of quarantine, I was like, oh, I'm going to be here for 2 weeks and I'll be back in Chicago. I was there for 2 months.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest factors is just no one knew what was going to happen or how long it was going to go. So, of course, they're going to, kind of hold strong with pricing. And just historically, this is the busiest time of year. So, for a building to offer a concession anytime during the summer months is very unheard of. But I think now that there's, people aren't moving here for jobs, people aren't moving here for college, they're moving out of the city or perhaps extending their leases. You just don't have as many people coming to the market or going into the market. So now buildings are starting to see that lag, and that's when they're starting to come down. I think right now it's just a who can give the best deal type thing or who can give me the best deal. That's what clients are looking for. So I think it's a big fight between, I'm going to get 2.5 months free over here on an 18-month lease, but you're only going to give me 2 months free over here. So I think it's just not as many people are moving to the city, and it's hurting. It's hurting the buildings.
Yeah, I think that's all true. I think another thing, like part of it was, I mean, sometimes it just takes a while for the dust to settle as well. Yeah. It just took a little bit, but I do think that at the beginning, I think you almost had to race to the finish line as well, where people saw this stuff coming up, like, I got to make a decision. I got to do this. I got to do that. Yeah. Maybe people who were buying decided that they're going to rent instead for another year. And on top of it, you had so many people who were renewing. And they would just kind of sign what was in front of them. And so like part of our job, I mean, for me at least, I don't know about you, it was like being a consultant, being like, all right, this is what the market's at. Like if you're going to renew, maybe do this or whatever. Yeah. And a lot of people they just renewed. They didn't want to go look for stuff. Right. They didn't know what was going to happen. And so you saw quite a bit of that. And now, like, I think, like you said, you're starting to see the effects of just less kind of people coming here, less people really moving. So yeah, we'll see what's going to happen. It'll be interesting, but we're getting towards the end of busy season. And I know everything got extended. And so like, I'd say like, last year in August this time, it was probably similar, but like we still did pretty well for August and September.
Yeah, August is usually also one of my biggest months.
Yeah, no, August is too, right?
Yeah,
but
so,
now we're kind of in September though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're targeting September now.
That's
So
true.
Yeah.
and it's slowed down. It's a little bit busier than last year, but like, you know, it's gonna be painful if we don't have a more busy than normal fall for a lot of these buildings. I don't know what they're gonna do.
About the racing to the finish line right now, specifically people, I think these buildings are trying to race to get people in so that they're offering bigger concessions because, you know, it is going to get a lot slower in winter months. Yep. So let's try to fill up now, give these concessions to get these people in, and then, you know, see what winter season is going to do.
Yeah.
I do have to touch a point though, because a lot of my spring clients, they did a lease extension for another 6 months. So I'm thinking October and November might be busy because they might be able to move, you know, or start a new lease. You know, they're getting tired of their little pet interrupting their Zoom meetings. They might need like a little more space. So I do, you know, see mindset wise that I do think the traffic might pick up.
I agree.
A lot of my clients right now are looking for October, and buildings right now are being very flexible with holding 90,
you can get whatever you want.
20 days, you know, like they're being extremely flexible with that. And that really helps with that fall traffic. And, you know, also a lot of buildings are doing a lot of great things for their residents, you know, providing breakfast, like, you know, a plant, if you know, they're doing a lot of really cute stuff to make residents happy, getting creative with virtual movies, and then here's the popcorn. So,
Yeah, I'm hoping that's the case where you just see more consistency. And like, I do still think that it'll be busier than normal this fall, winter. Because like you said, I think there just were more people who did month to month and did 6 months and so on and so forth. But then again, you know, people don't really want to move in the winter, but I bet you will see more leases kind of expiring.
Some buildings are paying for your movers up to $800. So buildings are getting very creative. So you don't even have to pay for your movers. We'll pay it for you. The buildings are doing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know, it's really great. I mean, what do you guys see for the future? Like, what's going to be the new normal? Are we going to have to make changes, or, you know, is it going to change? Is it going to stay the same?
I mean, it's hard to say just because what I did think was going to happen did not happen. I thought the market was going to hold strong with pricing, and that the Chicago rental market really wouldn't feel the effects of COVID. And obviously that's not true. So I'm hoping that maybe early next year we'll start to feel a little bit more normalcy, especially with a lot of these bigger corporations and bigger companies letting their agents or their employees work from home until I think like June 2021 is what Google is. So hoping that we'll start kind of seeing everyone kind of come back to the city then. But I think that we're going to keep seeing pricing go down to try to entice people to come in. I think that it might have a little bit of an effect on the rental market for the next few years. I don't think pricing is going to continue to go up like it has been the last few years. I think it'll kind of just plateau, and then it'll be more concessions. I think buildings are really, really trying to get in as many people as they can at this point.
Yeah, I think that's right too, because we're seeing, that's the bad thing about this, is we're seeing concessions increase as traffic decreases, right? So they could keep going down. I mean, honestly, like, we're really seeing those rise, and I'm seeing it right this past week. I'm seeing the traffic go down a little bit. Who knows? Maybe you know, we're in the second week of the month, so third week's normally busier. So maybe that'll change. But I think that there are going to be fundamental changes to everything for the most part. I'm seriously concerned about commercial real estate. I don't know how. They're in trouble. They're feeling it, and also you saw commercial real estate prices rise substantially more than residential here did. So like, you know, that's going to be a bit of an issue. And I don't know what they're going to do with a lot of these buildings. You know, I've heard the argument that, well, you know, maybe there'll be more demand because you need more space. Okay, fine. That would make sense if like there weren't, you know, new efficiencies being discovered from working from home all the time. So they don't even need it in the first place. So there's that, but you know, I don't know what they are going to do with a lot of this added inventory and vacancies. I think maybe you have to deconvert it into residential, and then maybe you see the residential price per square foot drop as people look for more space, and maybe you see more office build outs in homes, right? Like, you know, I mean, like what Hancock does, where they have their split commercial, split residential. I don't see why you don't see more of that. Obviously, the numbers are going to determine, and these guys are sharp. They're on the pulse of the market, and they know what they can get. And so we'll see what happens. But I think you'll start seeing that in the next year or so, maybe after the winter.
Yeah.
Where you might really see these changes. But who knows? I mean, anything could happen. So.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, even Mr. Ruben Oliver doesn't want to come to the office every day, so he comes one or 2 days a week.
For me, I mean, it's very pivotal, or it's very important to me to have an office to go to, because I'm the type of person that needs that structure. I think that was one of the biggest pain points for me in the shelter in place, was that it was Groundhog Day for me. I just wake up and get to my laptop. I think it's really important to have a reason to get up in the morning and put my eye cream on and put my deodorant on, get dressed, and have that routine. So I think that's a big thing that clients are feeling too, is just speaking with clients that I've toured recently. It was like, I just can take a nap in the middle of the day, and I'm not getting as much or I'm not as active as I was before. So
also like culture, like you set up your virtual happy hour with your team. DAC had their happy hour Zoom calls and with the team, and I think that's really important, especially with what's going on right now in the world, and the morale and be able to see everyone, still keep that culture, and so that was great.
Definitely. So I think that's pretty much the last question. So at the end, we sort of go into this is one of the questions we pretty much ask everyone who comes on the show. Right. But what is like one thing that you recommend anyone in Chicago who like absolutely, you have to do this one thing, right? You're here for a weekend. What are you gonna do?
You're gonna laugh at me. And this is the tourist in me, but I love the Chicago boat architecture tour, and that is because Chicago has so many different layers of history with it. Before, pre-fire, after fire, the different styles of architecture, and the way that the architects talk to each other with the different aspects of the city. So I think one of the best ways to really learn about the multi-layer Chicago history is to just go on one of those tours and learn about the buildings, learn about the time frames. So don't judge.
Maybe you can like go to the Bean afterwards, get a drink at Navy Pier, and get a bowl at Pizza and Oven Grinder. Like, are you not the biggest tourist ever? No, I mean it is. I'm giving you like,
I know.
I'm giving you stuff, but no, it's a good tour. I mean, I've done it multiple times.
You need to have
it's
a
also
Chicago
like
dog.
The most touristy thing ever.
I mean, to me, like one of my favorite things to do is show people like the culinary scene in Chicago as well. I went to culinary school. I love eating.
Did you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went to culinary school.
She can make anything from scratch.
Not any.
Did not know that. You never bring food here.
Yeah, I do.
Yes, she does.
Almost every day. Yeah.
I've never had your food.
Yeah, I think you have though.
Definitely have not.
But yeah, I mean, I really like the culinary scene in Chicago is amazing. One thing I do think I need to expand more on is not just in my little like 2-mile radius of downtown. Recently went to a restaurant in Wicker Park, and I was like, oh my gosh,
where'd you go?
Amazing. Enoteca, it's an Italian restaurant.
Yeah. I know. I haven't been. Yeah.
It's really good. So, but yeah, I mean, eat your way across the city. Try to find the best mom and pop places. One of my favorite restaurants is Batter and Berries in Lincoln Park, Lakeview. If any of you have ever gone, the chicken and waffles are the absolute best.
That's like the small place on Broadway, right?
Yeah, it has, like,
one of my friends actually was the manager there, so we would go for brunch and stuff. Super good.
It's like amazing.
It's really good.
So.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll let you pass on that. All right, so now we have some questions from the audience. Let's see. The first one is, what is the best advice for new agents who entered the industry during the pandemic? That's from Christian. I know you kind of sort of answered that, but
no, I mean, it's a really good question. It's good to touch base on again. I think the biggest advice I would have is just like push through. Like, you're going to hit road bumps. You're gonna hit those lows. And this is also another quote that I tell my team that they probably hate me for, but you have to ride the lows of the roller coaster just as well as you ride the highs. You're going to have an awesome week. You have a lot of closings, and then the next week you're not going to have anything. So you have to be able to just keep in mind that every week with this job is different. You never know what's going to happen. And, if you do have someone that's, maybe already gone to see 9 of the 10 buildings you had in mind for them. Okay, well, take them to that one building, because the only way you're not going to close them is if you don't don't try. So just push through, keep your head up, and work your butt off. Like, you have to market too. Like, I think the biggest one of the things that people hate the most about this job is posting ads and
For
marketing
sure.
for these buildings. But spend a couple days, throw some headphones in, put some awesome hyped up music on, get yourself a coffee.
Some deep house.
Yeah. Well, whatever you want. Some Rihanna or some Brantley Gilbert, whatever works for you. But yeah, I mean, that's what, back in the day of Craigslist, when it was, Chicago's such a Craigslist, or was, I don't know.
I don't know if it is. Yeah.
Was such a big Craigslist city back in the day when I first started. I mean, I would have 800 ads up on Craigslist. And
I remember those days.
Yeah.
It was miserable. It almost chased me right out.
But see, I loved it. Like, to me, like
that's how you learn the market.
Yeah. And what
Fine.
healed my anxiety about like the coming week was, I'm going to go post some ads and I'm going to get a couple leads and I'm going to go close them. So I would literally go to the Intercontinental Starbucks and I would sit there, and there would be days I'd be the first one there and they'd have to basically chase me out. So.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, back then it was a linear model where X amount of ads gives you X amount of, for sure. But it's not like that anymore.
So what is brilliant is that even though you have that many ads, you know your market so well. When somebody called you, hey, I'm looking for the Lakeshore East convertible with the balcony, washer and dryer, dog friendly, you already knew. Also the hardwood floors that you knew already. It was the tights.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the best things for product knowledge because I was looking at websites all day. And another thing to remember too is like I moved to Chicago with absolutely zero knowledge of the city. I could stand at Michigan and Wacker and I couldn't even tell you the difference between Streeterville, River North, and the Loop when I first moved here and started this job. So one of the biggest things about learning your market or learning your product, other than going to the buildings and actually touring, was marketing.
Yeah.
Looking at the websites, reading, looking at pictures. So
I mean, you have like an inherent, curiosity, which always that'll take you very far for sure.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Second question. What's one lesson you learned during all this? What would you do differently if you had to do it again? That's from Amy.
That's a really, really good question. A lesson that I have learned is probably to be easier on myself. There were days where like I was comparing myself to what other people were doing, and it really did have an effect on my mood. And I am the number one advocate for just let it roll off. And as I've talked about, like you have to be able to control your mindset. And there were a couple of times just because I was so secluded. I mean, I even messaged you one day and was like, I'm going to have a breakdown because I was also in Georgia with no car, no place to go. I couldn't even walk to like a Starbucks or anything. I was alone with my dog for 2 months, basically, while my boyfriend was at work. So just be easier on yourself because if I would have known then that I was going to break a record for the month, I probably would have not had as many harsh thoughts about myself as I did.
Okay, that's good.
And if you didn't think about it, that's like closing a deal every day in June.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like I know people like might hear that, like maybe who aren't in real estate and like don't know, but if you're in real estate, like especially someone who's just representing tenants, like that is
or sales overall.
Well,
in
general it's hard to do, but like it's way harder to do if you're just like being a tenant rep like that. It's just so much more work on that. Like it's a lot. Last question. I don't know how this slipped in here. What is it like being interviewed by an only child loser in all caps? That's from Devon, longtime college friend and client actually. So
Devon,
thanks, buddy.
It's been great so far.
Right?
Is he talking about you or me?
Yeah.
You're not an only child.
No, I am the only child. No, I'm kidding.
You act like you are, but no, I'm just kidding. People like it's so annoying. People like are always like shocked when they find out I'm only child, but like this just stuck, and now it is what it is.
Betsy
I think they don't have anything else to make fun of.
Betsy is a saint.
Betsy is an angel, so
she's a good gal.
Yeah.
All right. So last final segment. This is called the Sunday Scaries. Everyone has bad days. Everyone has good days, but some people, sometimes you just have really bad days. So tell us about worst day on the job. This doesn't have to be the worst day on the job. It could be a bad experience. It could be something that sort of twisted your mindset, put you in a third gear, whatever. But, how did you overcome it or, what kind of went on there?
Yeah. I mean, this was probably my most difficult question just because I had to really sit and think, but when I think of Sunday Scaries, I kind of just think about how this is a job where your paycheck is not guaranteed. Like you're not at a 9 to 5 where you're clocking in, putting in 40 hours a week and you're getting paid on the 1st and the 15th of the month. This is a job where if you aren't, you could be working, but if you're not closing deals, you're not making money. So for me, I think, especially in the beginning of the job was just not knowing when my next paycheck was coming or where my next client was coming from, because I moved to Chicago without a sphere of influence. I knew one person when I moved to Chicago. other than, who I interviewed with. So I think the biggest thing to get through that was just, everything happens for a reason. Everything's going to be okay. At the end of the day, there are other jobs out there. I can go be a barista at Starbucks if I needed to get through it. So for me, there was a lifestyle that I wanted to live, and I moved to Chicago with the mindset that I wasn't going to fail. So that's just kind of how I got through the times of uncertainty in the beginning of the job. And even now, I mean, especially with the uncertainty of the market, I still get those thoughts of like, well, I did really great in June, but what if November hits and I have nothing, So just kind of always keeping that positive mindset.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's where like, there's a lot of real estate agents aren't the best with finances either. So it's like,
right.
You got to save and, it takes a while to get that discipline, but it's important.
Well, I even find myself right now, like having those thoughts, like, do I really need to go buy this pair of shoes? Because in November, like, we're not going to be able to wear those shoes, but we're probably going to use that money. So
yeah.
Even now I'm having those thoughts.
You'll be able to use in 120 days will be 2021.
Oh, that's very true.
New year, new you, new
Hope
shoes.
for her a better one.
Cool. All right. So that's it though. But I just wanted to thank Aysha again for coming out, and congratulations on the awesome month. And just, I mean, in general, just, you've obviously been doing really well, been top agent here. So great job with all that. Anyone listening, you could find us on social media, Downtown Apartment Company on Instagram, Facebook, our website, downtownapartmentcompany.com. As always, want to thank the listeners for tuning in to the Downtown Series podcast. If you love our show and want to get in the latest info, everything Chicago real estate related and more, follow us on Facebook, Instagram. You can also, if anyone is looking to rent, buy, sell, give us a thumbs up and subscribe, whichever platform you use to listen to the podcast. Also want to give a special thanks to our editor and producer, Cody Stahl, who makes all this possible. Without him, this would be a complete nightmare mess and nothing would ever get done. So big shout out to Cody. And also his family friend of Cody's, Chicago music producer, Colin O'Malley, who came with the cool music for us.
Wonderful.
I think it's a cool little tune. I like it a lot.
I love it.
Reminds me of Sissy Strut by the Meters. Side note.
Never heard it.
It's not Rihanna.
But as always, I'm Quentin Green, so choose wisely and live stylishly. Wisely.